Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being here and wanting to learn something new. Today, we are going to be talking about CBD and wellness communities and how does it affect the opinions of youth. And this is sponsored by the Mercer Council on Alcoholism and Drug Addiction. Here we go. So first of all, some of you may be wondering who I am. And if you don't know me by now, hello, my name is Ruta Pino. I am a prevention educator. I am the Drug-Free Communities Program Coordinator for the Mercer Council on Alcoholism and Drug Addiction. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Global Studies, Political Science, and American Studies. I'm certified in teaching English as a foreign language, life skills training, and leadership. So that's sort of the background and how it informs my presentations. So why this presentation? I think a lot of the time when a lot of people look at presentations in general, I think that the way we present our information is so important. And the information that I present to you is to inform you. This is also not a parenting class. This is not to scare you. And it's not a parenting class because you are the best parent for your child. You know them the best. You've probably known them longer than they've known themselves. My perspective is shaped by my learning experiences, and to also note that this is a presentation not just for parents, it's for anyone that's concerned about being involved in a youth's life, whatever that looks like. So what we really want is to open a dialogue for people to have interesting, heartfelt, and authentic conversations with the youth in their lives. Also, this is evidence-informed and some evidence-based. Evidence-informed meaning that all of the studies and the information that I take on the internet and that I put into a presentation, I use that information in a way that presents something that I think is relevant to the conversation. Also evidence-based in that based on the Mercer Council's programs, Life Skills, Too Good for Drugs, Footprints for Life, Protecting You, Protecting Me, all those sorts of programs are used as, some of those are used as formats for some of my presentations. So I sort of amalgamate everything, put it in there. And if you have anything that you would like to contest or want to understand, you are more than welcome to. In the description below, you can look at your own research. And I always give the resources to my presentation in the descriptions of the YouTube video. Also, while I'm going through this, you can look at these resources with me. So I think that will also be good to understand holistically what that looks like and how you can help. So I also want to go over what we're going to go over today. First of all, what are the consequences? There's a perception of risk, there's the normalization, the Mercer County survey, and some statistics. So these are just some of the things that we're going to go over. I just wanted to put that out there so we can sort of understand the navigation of our conversation, because marijuana is such a hot topic in New Jersey, because it's something that has sort of moved around the way that people conversate with each other. I want to make sure that we are focused in the way that we present this information. So also, when we are looking at CBD, especially in the wellness community, there are a lot of things that we want to know, right? And I think the most important thing right now is to know the information. And I'm going to go back to the Mercer County survey a little bit later, but right now I just want to put that out there. I'm going to make a small note of it, actually. So while we are going through that, I also want to have people understand that the source of information that you get your information from is important. So is it a company? Is it a nonprofit? How is the information being presented? Why is it being presented in that way? And I just wanted to look at this in a way where a lot of people will say, oh, it's infused with eucalyptus, it's infused with, it's just hemp, it's CBD. And a lot of those words are buzzwords right now where people want to integrate it into the wellness community in an interesting way, but to also understand exactly what that means. So we're going to look at it from a framed perspective specifically for this. It is an Arizona company. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Matthew Scott, creator and chief scientist for CBD Wellness. I started this company about 10 years ago. I've been in the botanical industry my entire life, and the cannabis industry is amazing. CBD, THC, both amazing compounds. Whether it's pain, it's anxiety, seizures, epilepsy, people's cholesterol starts to come down, their blood pressure starts to balance out, mental issues, physical issues. The synthesized and pharmaceutical methods, they've been around, and look at the state of America. Part of the plant and part of what it does is it's also anti-cancer, anti-anxiety, anti-tumor with a natural plant instead of a chemical from who knows where, from people that just care about your money. There's a lot more in cannabis or hemp than just CBD. There's terpenes, there's fatty acids, vital in my mind and in my research to making the products do what they do. We deal with 500 to 600 people a day from all over the state. And it's very common we hear, you have CBD that works. You have what is called an endocannabinoid system, which has these receptors in your body, in your head, on your skin, literally all over you, inside of you, on the outside of you. CBD doesn't fix pain. What it does is it balances out your system. It starts to block certain receptors that help regulate those symptoms and those things that are triggering your brain, telling you that you're in pain. Then here is the lab. This Javier is working on some topicals. All of our products are handmade, including our topicals. Most people need the other part of the plant, the CBD part. The problem is the majority of the products out there do not contain or contain very little CBD, ruining a lot of people's mindsets on what this industry and what this plant could do.
I've been giving Whitney some of the CBD oil. I'd taken her off for trazodone.
And I felt great.
She had not been having any of her types of seizures or anything like that. She's been as happy as, I can't explain the difference.
And people, I gotta tell you this, folks, get the CD oil quickly as you can.
It's worked miracles for her.
The sky is the limit to what we can do with this plant and the amount of people we can help, from cancer patients to a supplement. That's where I want this to be.
I retired from a 38-year law enforcement career with a major back injury and a major morphine addiction. And I was looking for a way out from opioids and pain. Tried every CBD product in Arizona. Finally found CBD Wellness products, and it literally changed our whole chemistry. It's the best product out there, and we believe in it wholeheartedly. It'll change the trajectory of your life.
It is the only thing that has worked for my neuropathy. You're talking about somebody who died in a car accident. Metal rods from my neck down. I have one leg. I'm like a mess. The CBD has healed me. My neuropathy has not come back.
I remember giving it to my grandma, putting it on her thumb, not telling her. She said she'd never felt her thumb not throb in 8 years.
The sooner it becomes available everywhere, the more wonderful this country's going to be.
We have a couple different options. We have the original pain relieving salve. This one has been the #1 pain relieving salve in Arizona for over 8 years. We are all so programmed from the Western way and the doctors and the pharmaceutical model that we don't think about the fact that this is a plant. We are one of the most busy dispensaries in Tucson, but we're extremely effective at what we do, and there's never a long wait. So please stop by so we can show you how we can help.
Okay, so excuse me while I try to, I always have trouble with these things. Give me a second. All right, so when we are sort of looking at this, right, I want us to look at it in a way that it was framed. Now, when we look at this particular video, and a lot of people will find things on CBD like this, where it says, oh, it cured so much, it cured this, it cured that. There are so many different ways that it has changed my life. And some people may have that and think they have found the answer. And I think that we should all be inclined to believe what people feel, right? But the other side of that is understanding that the owner of this particular dispensary had said it's CBD, you know, it's wellness, it's medical, you know, but it's a plant. And yes, it's a plant, but also understanding that doctors need to be a part of that pain management process in order to understand how it would affect other parts of your body and any other medicines you'd be taking. So that is something to keep in mind as well. And to understand that depending on where you get this information, and if I just got my information from this video about CBD, I would think that it was a miracle drug. I would think that it would be a miracle to use it, to have it. It's the answer to everything, every ailment that I may have, right? And a lot of people would want to move in that direction because it seems so innocent in the way that it's being presented, and that is the information that is being presented in that specific scenario. So it's not to say that CBD may not have benefits. It's more to say that when we are looking at the way CBD could have its benefits, it's to understand, one, its limitations, but two, to also understand how a person who has ailment would have to interact with CBD to make sure that that is the particular thing that they want for their life, given all the information that they have and given every part of the information that they can. And that it may be that this one dispensary is doing it right, making sure that there are many different areas of cautionary measures, but to also understand that all dispensaries in general aren't necessarily regulated the same way or have the same drive to have that product be as pure or as quality as possible. So just keep that in mind. Now, as we move forward, I want to talk about some of the different types of e-liquid, because this is what a lot of youth would be finding, especially with oils, joints, and edibles. So that's sort of the three that I'm talking about here. Oils in general, I have talked about this before. I have a great presentation that I did with the regional coalition coordinator, Melissa Arnold at the Mercer Council, and I will link that presentation below because I think that it's so interesting. But in reality, you can get carried away talking about vaping because it is such an interesting and arduous thing to talk about because of the history, the implication, and all of the newness to it that we're sort of gathering information as we go. But also looking at this, I wanted to sort of ask, do any of these look familiar? If we sort of look at the candy here, obviously these look a lot like candy that we would use or we would eat when we were children. If you look over here, this is just a piece of candy, but what we don't know is it also has THC in it, but these were advertised as CBD edibles. And there was this one over here, which I found on this particular blog. And obviously you can find CBD in a joint format. So here we go. The Ultimate CBD Edibles Guide. And anyone can find this information. So this person in particular, it's a blog, it's a Snack Nation. And as we go through here, the information that has been given is interesting, right? It does not get users high. So when people look at this, they want to understand that. CBD oil, that's the stuff that's used here, the legality. It's interesting, it's informative. And here is what I find interesting as well. So when we have here, the CBD oil may, and it's not necessarily something that has been particularly FDA approved for this particular purpose, but it says scientific evidence may have some merit in reducing anxiety, cutting down inflammation and pain, and treating insomnia. But, and what I find really interesting is that the FDA does not regulate CBD to ensure origin, safety, etc. So be cautious when you select products. So here in particular, you have pieces of chocolate, you had cookies over here, you had roasted nuts, dark chocolate, and sea salt that's CBD infused. You had cherry almond bars, CBD bites, hemp powder bars, gummies, more gummies, but in particular, this had CBD on it. But what I find interesting is it right here, it says it has THC and they're vegan. Turmeric sweets, raspberry energy bites, mango citrus bites, granola, chia parfaits, like the list goes on and on and on, right? So when we're looking at all of these edibles in particular, we want to make sure that when we are looking at this, a lot of people say, oh, it's part of the wellness community. Superfood kale salad in the CBD, spray, cough, vinaigrettes, that sort of thing, where a lot of people who would assume these parts of wellness would actually incorporate CBD into their everyday life, which in their own right can be a very good thing if they wanted to incorporate that as part of their pain management regimen, right? But as we sort of look through this, it's to understand that this is with an informed adult, with an informed brain, to understand that the person buying this is over 21 and engaging in the process and understanding what they are ingesting. And to also note that if they are there just for the medicinal benefits, if there is THC in it, to recognize that there's THC in it, and they're likely to get a particular high from that. So that's just something to keep in mind. I just thought that was really interesting because edibles are definitely becoming more available in many different forms, but also that there are many different types that people can sort of digest cannabidiol in. So what kinds of vape pens are there? In particular, I did want to talk about vapes just because it is something that is so interesting and prevalent, but also that this is one of the number one ways that youth are ingesting marijuana, that they are engaging in the marijuana use. It is something that's some sort of social in saying that, oh, like if I use my pen, then I can, like be a source for somebody else if they didn't have theirs, and you can make a new friend. And it started with the cigarette types. And as the cartridges started to evolve, as people started to, jerry rig all of these sorts of cartridges, they could fill it with whatever they wanted. And THC oil became part of that process, which includes disposables and hacks as well, so people can hack those sorts of things and go through that. So here I have a YouTube video just on vaping itself, so people can see this person in particular is Vape Meet Social, so it's a social part of it. And
what's up guys, Nick from Vape Meet here. This is 5 life hacks for vapors.
Yeah.
Before we get going, if you haven't already, subscribe to our life hack number 1. If your tank gurgles or gives you a lot of spitback, it's usually due to excess liquid in the coil. Luckily, there's a few ways you can fix that. If you're using a mod or adjustable wattage device, bump up your wattage a little bit. With more power going through your coil, it'll help vaporize the excess liquid. If you're still having issues or using a device that isn't adjustable like a pod system, the flick might be useful. Hold your device firmly and flick it downward. This will force the excess liquid out through your mouthpiece. This can get a little messy, so I recommend going outside or doing it over a garbage can to avoid spilling any liquid. Moving on to life hack number 2, fixing dry hits. If you're a chain vapor or take long inhales, you might have experienced a dry hit, which does not taste very good. Continuing to vape on a dry coil will cause it to burn out early, so here's a tip to avoid that. Block off your airflow until it's almost completely closed and inhale without firing. This will create suction and pull juice into the coil. If you're using a device without adjustable airflow, find where the air comes from and use your hand to cover it.
So I just wanted to show that there are definitely social media outlets that do educate a lot of people on these instances or on these devices. So someone in particular who has a THC product and are vaping THC, they can find these videos and find a way to get a better hit, so to say. Also, this is something that I found really interesting. It's a wellness CBD product. And a lot of the time when people talk about CBD, they say, oh, we're pure CBD. It's just medical. It's just for you to, have like like just all the benefits, none of the high. And here it is marketed as high CBD medical marijuana vape, but it has a THC level in it. The ratio is 1:20. And also the site itself is called FP Wellness ny.com. So wellness is in the title there. So if there's a wellness aspect to it, people are using that name to also sell THC infused products. Now, also to understand that I visited the site before, and when I visited, it said, are you at least over the age of 18 to view this site? But obviously, if I'm 16 and I click on it, they have no way of knowing that. The only thing that I need, I can order medical marijuana online from New York. So there's that, and then you can pick the dispensaries that you would like to order from. So that is something that I wanted to keep in mind as well, especially because they say it's wellness, but hybrids do exist, and to keep that in mind as you move forward, especially when someone who is 21 and just learning how to do it and how to engage with the product to understand what product they are actually using. So I found that kind of fascinating. Now, also, when we are sort of looking at this too, it's to understand that, yes, you have to be over the age of 18 in order to engage with the products online, but you have to be over the age of 21 to ingest. And that is something to keep in mind, that in New Jersey specifically, you have to be 21 or older to engage with this product. So regardless of whether or not this is something that someone can find and buy legally through the means of the internet, that does not mean that it was meant for them. And that is something that should be reiterated, even though it is ingrained in parts of the wellness websites that they may be visiting. So also, I'm going to be talking about the survey really quickly. We did the Mercer County survey, and it was something that I wanted to keep in mind. There was something that I found fascinating about marijuana. In the year 2019, marijuana was 13 times more prevalent in schools over the next most used substance, alcohol. So there was alcohol, and then there was marijuana. So those are the two drugs that are used the most. 18% of 11th graders use in the last 30 days. And to also note that 73% said that their best friends use in the last year, and 29% said it is a problem at their school. So I just wanted to keep that in mind, to keep the numbers so we can sort of get them in our brains, right? So what I do also want to note is that wellness culture in general is something that we've seen a lot of, right? And a lot of people can argue a lot of different things about it. And we're not here to argue the validity of what wellness means, because it can mean so many different things to so many different people. But it is to understand that a lot of people use certain words from a community to sell certain products in order to get money. And when we see this here, we can sort of understand that it makes it accessible for a lot of different people to have access to CBD products that inherently can also hold different products that they may not want, such as THC. No, so we can sort of look at how harmful or helpful a wellness culture has been, and we can sort of see it through a lot of different lenses. What I did want to look at here is the CBD Wellness store, because once again, it has wellness in the name. When I clicked on this before, it asked if I had to be over 18. And it says THC free here, so that's some of that too, but also to understand that when people talk about CBD, you usually see like a sunset in the background, or, you know, fit people selling it, things like that. So we're talking about image as well. The use of marijuana on the brain, there were some things that I did want to talk about, and there is an excerpt here that I found really interesting, and that we can sort of break apart. So I wanted to start a conversation between medical marijuana and Black American experiences versus the teenage brain, and how we can sort of tie the two together and see how we can do that. So I have an excerpt here from a particular doctor who was talking about teen brains. And so she's a neuroscientist, and she says THC locks on longer than in the adult brain. For instance, if a teen were to get high over a weekend, the effects may still be there on Thursday and Friday later that week. An adult wouldn't have that same long-term effect. This is the effect I want your son to understand. And the parent had asked about this particular student using marijuana and engaging in marijuana use because they were anxious and just wanted to calm down. While THC is the CB1 receptor, it blocks the process of learning and memory and slows or stops adolescent brain development. Because of this, exposure to marijuana during adolescence can dramatically alter brain maturation and cause long-lasting neurobiological changes that ultimately affect the function and behavior of the adult brain. And this is according to a 2014 review of an academic journal, published in an academic journal that examined the consequences of use during adolescence. And they looked at cognitive functioning, emotional behavior, and the risk of developing a psychiatric disorder in adulthood. And what they had found is, in some cases, the damage was irreversible. So also what I find interesting too is that a large longitudinal study was done in New Zealand, I will be linking that below, found that persistent marijuana use disorder with frequent use starting in adolescence was associated with an IQ drop of 6 to 8 points. And those who use marijuana heavily as teenagers and quit using as adults did not recover those lost IQ points. People who only began using marijuana heavily in their adulthood did not lose IQ points. Two shorter duration prospective longitudinal twin studies found that youth who used marijuana showed significant declines in verbal ability, equivalent to 4 IQ points, and general knowledge between the preteen years, 9 to 12 before use, and late adolescence, 17 to 20. However, those who went on to use marijuana at older ages already had lower scores on these measures at the start of the study. So this, in conclusion, to sort of sum that up, is to say that the less you use when you are a child, the more likely you are to have a more maturated brain as an adult. And to keep that in mind, that just because, you know, you have products that say we're THC free, that doesn't necessarily mean people are reading the labels correctly. That doesn't mean that people are getting the best high quality from their friends, that sort of thing. And to also understand that the wellness culture is really adapting this medical marijuana, this marijuana in general, right? But it's also to understand that Black Americans in general, in New Jersey, you are still being arrested, are still being tried for, and are still dealing with the consequences of marijuana being something that was illegal for anyone to use at the time that they were arrested. So I have an article here. And we're sort of looking at this here, and I did want to look at some things that I thought were interesting, but for this one especially, Black Americans who are close to 4 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis charges as white people are not gaining the same wealth through the cannabis industry. And the reason being is because it is hard for them to get permits. And what they had found here, especially what I wanted to point out, was for many in the communities, the major barrier is access to licensing processing, and the arbitrarily capped social licensing process narrows the scope of eligible applicants with competitive lotteries for a limited number of licenses, pitting social equity applicants or applicants from historically marginalized communities who have been disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs against each other. Now, I just wanted to point that out because we want to understand that a lot of people now are legally openly selling marijuana and CBD products that are associated with marijuana. And this is something that could not have happened 20 years earlier. And so you have people in these wellness communities that are profiting off something that 20 years beforehand, a lot of people could not profit off of. So we are seeing some of the insidious aspects of what wellness communities and what wellness can look like in general in this CBD culture because of the ramifications of it. And that is just something I wanted to keep in mind because it's not just medical marijuana, it's not just CBD, it has so much context to it, and to understand that is an important part of the journey for making the best decision for yourself, your body, and for your teams to make that decision as well. Also to understand that when a lot of people say CBD is the medical part of that marijuana plant in general, it's to understand that marijuana and medical marijuana is not regulated by the FDA. So because it's not regulated by the FDA, it is not something that can be medically recognized. So it is something that marijuana can be used for medical use, And it is something that people use to supplement parts of their pain management regime, but it is a regimen, but it is not something that is medical marijuana. So we want to change that and say CBD is marijuana for medical use, not medical marijuana. So more regulation is needed, and there was an FDA study that I wanted to look at. But first, a lot of people are asking these questions, and this man offers an interesting perspective, and I just wanted to point that out to see that. So
kids of all ages are now more stressed to perform and more stressed to do things, and our balance is out of whack a little bit. So moms are coming in, they're saying, I've heard CBD works for this or anxiety, and can I use it? Is it safe? Well, the answer is it depends. This is Josh Rimini here with Dilworth Functional Wellness, your Functional RX podcast, and today we're going to talk about CBD and if it's safe and is it right for my kid. I got two small girls, they're 3 and 5. We're not going to talk about that age group today. I hope nobody's using CBD for a toddler, because we can't really get there. But there's a lot of kids out there that are moms are using more natural products for health conditions. I'm talking to you guys today a little bit about this because of the importance of using a healthcare professional when you're making healthcare decisions on your life or your children's lives. You have to have a lot of variables that go into play, especially with kiddos. I always use natural products, nutritional products, even medications. We have to be more scrutinized. We have to be more careful. We have to screen more and see more. I have a really good story. A mom came and she was asking, her kid was just super stressed and super anxious and was having really bad performance in school. He was having to come home, all this stuff. And I started them on my CBD regimen and how we do it. And we had a consultation and we talked and we had a personalized approach to how to use it. And she said within days her kid felt a lot better and she was crying. She says, I've used everything, we've tried all these drugs. So yes, there are instances where the CBD can really work with a kid, but there were so many variables that I used. Do I use an isolate, a distillate? What's the dose? What drugs is he on? What other things? Is he on therapy? So you have to put all this into play. And the only way to do that is to be a qualified healthcare professional, right? We're not trying to seek knowledge from Dr. Google or the health food guy who's 18 years old and has no medical training whatsoever. You know, whether it's CBD, clinical nutrition, drug therapy, all of these things play into balance. And I take huge pride, if you guys know me here, like this one subject of is CBD right for me, and in this case kids, there are so many variables that you don't understand, and you really should use a qualified healthcare practitioner that understands all those variables, and there's really not that many out there, which is why I love doing this. I have a CBD consult link that you can link right to our website that says, hey, I want to talk to Josh and I want to know if this is right for me and if it's going to be safe, effective. Like the whole process is do no harm first, right? But how many people know that there's drug interactions with CBD? Or nutrient interactions? What other supplements am I taking? Who's qualified enough to say that to you? You guys have to think about that a little bit, right? We want to be what's safe and we want to do it the right way. And you get what you pay for, right? That's the thing is, you know, there's a professional in place to help you with your health, and we hope we can do that here for you at Dilworth Drug and Wellness. Josh Rimini here with Dilworth Functional Wellness and your Functional RX podcast.
okay, so I really like what this particular pharmacist had said. And obviously, you know, there are people that say CBD is safe for kids. And there are many studies that show THC does interact with the brain in a very harmful way. But the way that CBD interacts with the brain can be a little bit different in how that process looks. Now, there are some takeaways that I want us to sort of look at here is to understand that if you are considering CBD, in very rare cases, people may want to consider CBD for their children. There are so many different ways that you can look at that, right? And to understand that looking at a healthcare professional, looking at people that know the interactions, understand what that means, and to interact with that in the best way possible, and to know where that CBD is coming from, then that's an important part of that process. And to understand the integration of CBD into a lifestyle is something that has to be taken very seriously. It has to be taken in a way that is very scrutinized, very special, and not something that can just happen. You can give your child a CBD pen, CBD vape pen, and call it a day. It's so much more than that. It is so much more holistic than that. And to also understand that the common types of drugs that have dangerous interactions with marijuana can include sedatives, anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, pain medications, anticonvulsants, anticoagulants. So this can be something as to get true. Tegretol, Zoloft, Xanax, Lunesta, Benadryl, Ambien, all those sorts of things, right? So it's to understand that when marijuana especially interacts with certain drugs, it can change the way those drugs interact in your system. It can modify the side effects, and it can be dangerous depending on the scenario. So that's something to completely understand and to make sure that that is something that someone holistically understands before using it in a daily setting, and possibly considering it in very rare cases for any children that could possibly use it. And also, I did want to point out that the foodandwine.com did talk about CBD, and they did a study particularly on CBD, and what they had found was that, I have the numbers here, sorry, I don't mean to exhaust you with these numbers, but THC, the study found that 49% of the products tested, 72 in total, contained THC amounts in greater than the limit of qualification. And though the FDA's limit of qualification does not appear to be specified, at least one product tested contained THC levels as high as 3.1 milligrams per serving, likely enough to have physical effects. On the bright side, 133 products were also tested for hazardous elements such as lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium. Oh, great. So while we're looking at this, it's to understand that they may say CBD on the bottle, they may label it as CBD, but that does not mean that you're only going to get CBD. So just keep that in mind. It's always the YouTube videos that get me. Okay, so there are so many different articles here, and why is CBD fascinating to teens? Well, there are a lot of different aspects to it, but to understand that this is a great resource, what parents should know about kids using CBD. This is something that you can go through in your free time. And why is this so interesting to young people? Are using CBD as a homeopathic remedy for pain, depression, and anxiety, and understand that there are significant differences between CBD studied in labs for medical conditions like epilepsy and CBD products that are sold to consumers for well-being. So that is to understand. And this is an interesting point. The biggest problem with CBD is that there is a lack of well-controlled trials and little understanding of the long-term effects. Further, the trials are focused on the action and benefits of the purified CBD compound, not an extract of CBD. So to understand that, this is also some facts on marijuana in teens. I have used this resource quite a lot, so you can look at that in your free time. And I always look at how social media does play a part. So I always look at TikTok, right? And when we're looking at TikTok, sometimes we want to type in certain things. So for example, if I want to type in marijuana, you're not going to be able to find anything. Now, wait, did I spell marijuana correctly? Sometimes I don't, but yeah, I did spell marijuana correctly, and you don't find anything. So now, how do I want to get around it? Okay, vape. Vape is a good one, because if you look through here, they do vape THC oil, and you can find the cross section on Stoner Talk, which is actually something, oh, sorry, not that, Stoner Talk here, which is actually something I find fascinating, because the hashtag is there, and people who are stoners can talk about their marijuana experiences together. So that is something to keep in mind, that because it is fascinating to teens, they are finding information from other teens. And to also note that there are professionals getting involved and people who are looking to make money and want to be cannabis entrepreneurs as they are looking to sort of get started in that process and to understand the ways that they can do that. And I find it interesting because a lot of people want to make money and sometimes they want to make it quick. So when we look at this, I want to sort of look at, what does this imply? What does this look at? What does this mean? And it's to understand that teens are getting such sources of information from a lot of different places. It's getting sources from social media, from wellness communities, from wellness blogs, from the internet in general. It's to understand that there are certain people saying, oh, it's CBD, it's fine, it's medical marijuana. Well, yes and no, it can be used in the medical process, but that doesn't mean it's used in the wellness process. And so with the embracing of wellness, with the embracing of having a product such as CBD, it's understanding where that CBD is coming from. And it's to understand that there are so many layers to the acceptance of CBD into the mainstream. And there's not one way for one person to look at this. It's to understand that it can have benefits to certain people and certain populations, and to keep that in mind as people are moving forward, and to see if they fit that population, how they can be safe and controlled in those scenarios if they are over the age of 21. Now, you only have to be 18 to start a business. Actually, I don't even think you have to be 18, but you have to be a certain age to get those licensures. And I will find out that information for you. I'm actually going to put that in the resources below. So it is fascinating to teens for a lot of reasons, because there's monetary value, there's a cultural value, there is a socialization value to that as well. So, and also a lot of people may ask, how can we help? Well, you need to have honest conversations with the teens or the youth in your life about policies, especially at their schools and their places of work. If they are working, the laws that exist in your area. New Jersey may have legalized recreational and medical marijuana, but that does not mean all spaces are allowed to have it. Genetics, maybe there are certain parts of your genes that are more akin to being adverse to marijuana use disorder. Talking about medical needs with a doctor, because you may have medicine that interferes with marijuana that you could be using. Let them know you are there for anything and everything if they have questions for it. And also note that when they're asking questions, you cannot judge them for that, because they are coming to you because they trust you. Be involved in their lives in whatever capacity you can, whether that's just making sure that you're in their daily life, or just checking up on them as much as you can. And if you do engage in marijuana use, medical or recreational, safely put it where it is inaccessible. So thank you again. If you are looking for resources, I can give them to you, and you will get them all in the description below in the video. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye.